Hi guys, and welcome back. Today is the day 2 of the Now Woman Summit, and this is the Photography 101 session. And I'm joined today by Jennifer West, which is an amazing photographer. Well, I'll let her introduce herself and what she does and know how long she's been doing this for, and how she kind of got into the industry. Jennifer, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you so much, Kishi. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. It's been so exciting watching so many amazing women talk so passionately about their businesses. I've just been constantly watching, honestly. My eyes are red, literally. I've been watching it all day. It's been amazing. Yeah, my name's Jen. So I am I'm a photographer and founder of Jennifer West Photography. I have been a photographer for over 20 years, which tells you my age a bit there, but you know, good lighting and all that.
You look great,
longer than I'd like to admit. Oh, you're lovely. But yeah, I basically started in college. As soon as they introduced a course, I actually stayed on a year later so I could study it because I loved it so much, and I took it from there. I did a degree in it, in fine art photography, and then moved to London. After having numerous photography jobs in Wales, which I'm from, little part-time jobs, I decided just to bite the bullet and move to London. And yeah, my photography's always been focused around people. I started off at the bottom. I started assisting alongside other jobs just to kind of get some money in and do it for free, just for the experience. And I ended up working in a really lovely portrait studio in central Knightsbridge in middle of London. I actually worked my way up from there. I started off as a trainee photographer, and I was lucky enough to work my way up to manager. So I run a studio and a team. We worked with international clients from everywhere. It was really exciting time. I loved it, but I always really wanted to run my own business alongside it. So I always had my wedding and portrait photography business running alongside it. And then, then when
from LA.
Oh, lovely to meet you. So yes, and then when I had my daughter about, she's nearly 6 now, I decided when I was on my maternity that I just wanted to bite the bullet and just have a business that could be more flexible around my family, really. Working in the photo studio, I was working every evening, every weekend, which is part of the industry, and I loved it, but I wanted to have that flexibility to be able to kind of make it my own. So that's what I did. And the rest is history.
And then we're here.
Exactly.
Really. Wow, amazing. Hello, Emilynn. We're just
good morning.
Good. I mean,
I'm so sorry. I don't have my headphones.
That's okay.
I picked the wrong ones. Like, I don't know why Apple changed it, but
that's all right. So really, I know you're on the other side of the ocean, but really just want you to introduce yourself, what you do, your journey, what your journey has been in photography, and how you really got where you are today.
So hi guys, I'm Emilynn Rose. I am a fashion and beauty photographer based in Los Angeles. And I've been doing this for about 10 years now. It's been my full-time job. It's been my only job. And I've pretty much dedicated my whole life to it. I love it. And 10 years later, I still get this crazy high off doing photo shoots. I'm actually in my studio now. We're about to do a shoot in an hour. So I just decided to come here. But yeah, I mean, it's been an amazing journey. I am so blessed and I'm so thankful for all the opportunities I've been given. It is a lot of hard work. I've been through a lot of that artist struggle. I've been through that artist, just questioning myself and doubting myself and thinking will I ever succeed? Will I ever be the photographer I dream to be? And, I've just pushed through all those, all those times. And, I am where I am today because of definitely the hard work I've put in, but also my amazing team. I'm really blessed to have good people around me, because that's half the battle.
I think it's great that you both mentioned the time frame that it's taken you to, get where you are today. And I know sometimes in photography, it could be quite hard because it does take that time to, build your client list and network. So, I mean, I really want to know, how did you guys do that? Jennifer, how did you build your client list to where it is today?
I think I always say that I'm hugely lucky with the clients that I've worked with. I build up a network of clients that I feel have become almost friends. And I think that when you look after your clients and you put as much love into what you do as I know that we do, that they love you back. And I have built a really lovely network of clients, mainly through recommendations, through friends of clients that I've worked with, and repeat work again and again and again. It just becomes almost like one big family. It's really lovely. I mean, I think starting off, you've just got to really get out there and network as much as you can, meet as many people in as many different industries as possible. But like any, just basically just get out there and really put the time in just to put yourself out there and get to meet as many people as you can. I think you've definitely got to put the hard work in and be prepared to, assist people, to go on as many courses as you can. Not necessarily, I'm not talking about like educational courses in terms of degrees and things, but just to really, just really research and just put the time in, because I think that's where you build your network, is just the more you do, even if it's just one little bit every single day, the more you get back from it.
I absolutely agree. And really just talking about that journey, Emilynn, how did you break past the point of test shooting? Because I mean, I'm a stylist and a creative director, so I kind of know how that world works. How did you break past in your journey that, the test shooting, the asking a friend, oh, can you model for me for this? I need to build my portfolio. And how long did that take?
Well, for me, I tell all my apprentices, I tell even myself, don't ever stop test shooting, actually.
Right.
Do not ever, because at the end of the day, I truly believe that stagnancy is the death of your art, and you always have to push your limits. And testing is where you really can push yourself and really experiment and do things that you've never done before, and you have the time to do it when you're testing. And really, for me, a lot of my test jobs is what gets me booked. Obviously, there's going to be a time where, you're testing and then you get so booked up that you can't. But you always got to find time to do stuff for you. When you're working as a photographer, it becomes work. Unfortunately, as much as it's fun, when it's based on clients' needs, it becomes work, because you're creating for a client. But when you're testing, you're creating for you, you're creating for your team, you're creating together. And so it's a lot different. But I always tell everyone to be strategic when it comes down to testing. Don't just test with anybody. Find a purpose on why you're testing. Is this for your portfolio? Is it to enhance your book? Is it to create a network? Is it, to help, build your brand? And so, when I first started, I was just testing to test, because it was one of those things that I was just oh, I should work with everybody. I should try to, see who I can work with, what I like, what I don't like. And then it just, it came to a point where now that I'm still testing today, but it's very strategic. It's really is this going to help my book, or is this going to help build my audience?
Yeah. And obviously I haven't worked with such a variety of people and, shooting for covers and for big brands. I suppose the question is really, how did you break through to that stage where people actually started taking your photography seriously and knowing that your art stood out to people and they could take a chance on you?
I think let's see. So I've been doing this for 10 years, right? And so maybe in the 5th year of my career, it really started hitting, it was I was just a struggling artist until that, one brand or I used to be the kind of person though, I was so determined, so there's this place called Melrose here in Hollywood. I used to be the kind of girl, I was a photographer that would go into the shops, hand out my, come in with my iPad, show my portfolio. This was Instagram beginnings, but this was let me still try the door-to-door kind of approach, And then I would just contact like cold email brands and be like, hey, here's my portfolio, here's my work. And, like luckily some brands gave me opportunities, and those brands and other brands started seeing me work with these brands. And then it started becoming like, I'm a fashion photographer, and it's really kind of coming in confident about it. Like I've always been a pretty confident kind of person, especially like, even sometimes like I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to come in knowing like I look like I know what I'm doing, and just, yeah. And did I answer your question?
No, you did. And I mean, on the flip side, Jennifer, I know in the industry, bridal photography is a little different, but it still has the same basis in that, people have to take a chance on you with their emotions. And we were talking about this earlier, and something that they're going to have and last forever, for you to convey a message of love. And how long did that take, and what's kind of like the process of that?
Oh gosh, well, I think that because it's something that I've always really loved, like I've done lots of different types of photography over the years, and I love every type of photography I do. It's always got to be surrounded with people. Oh, that's the basis. It's got to be with people. But I keep coming back to wedding photography, bridal photography. Even when I said to myself, oh, that's not cool. I'm not going to do that way back. I'm going to be a fashion photographer, which is very, very cool. I kept being drawn to wedding photography and photographing people and families and normal people. And I love it. I'm absolutely obsessed with people's stories and their personality. And I think because I showed that enthusiasm and very much the empathy to maybe not necessarily being entirely comfortable in front of the camera, or that they might have a really personal story that they feel really sensitive about. I think that really helps. And I think if your clients trust you, then they feel comfortable with you and safe that you're going to be able to tell their story of that love and that emotion really well. And I think that I started off doing weddings for free way back. And I think after doing a couple of them, and I absolutely loved it. And to be honest, the impractical person in me would do it for free forever, but you've got to have money coming in. So obviously I do that professionally, but I think that because I started off doing some free for my portfolio, and I would do them for people because the results were lovely and they loved them. Other people, work came from work essentially. So it was just really being prepared to work for free in the beginning, but then knowing your worth and knowing when to kind of stop doing that and start charging. And I think it's when you realize that you just start getting more and more work coming in and people are putting their trust into you as a professional, that you need to value yourself as a professional then.
And Jennifer spoke about, building a relationship with the people that you're working with, and I suppose with people in the industry. So Emily, how did you like retain all the people that I suppose you met, or better yet, how did you start to convey that into bookings? The people that you met, how did you turn that into bookings, and not just have a chat, but actually like, no, I'm a photographer, take me seriously, book me, or let me try something out on your project, and not just almost like a plaything, a casual, instead of casual conversations. Oh, sorry, Emilynn, you're muted.
Oh, can you hear me better?
Yes.
Oh, amazing. Okay.
Perfect.
Yes. Sorry, can you condense that question really quick?
Right. So in the industry now, when you've made, relationships with people, you've met people, you've networked, how did you turn that into a booking or like an opportunity for you?
Well, I definitely have a personality of business. So
Right.
it really comes down for me. Like, I do not like to get taken advantage of. I do not like to work for free. So for me, even when I started, like, I would just ask for even gas money or editing time or just like compensation of like, if somebody was like, hey, I don't have a full budget, but like, can you help me do this? Like when I first started, I was like, yeah, sure. But like, can you cover my editing time, or can you cover my travel? And then from there, it really just became like I stood my ground of, like pitching my rate that I deserve. I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for a long time. So it's like, it really comes down to like experience. And so for me, like, it was really like, I always made sure I pitched my rate, as uncomfortable as it would be sometimes. Like I have this saying that like, it's better to ask than never to ask, right? Like you might as well just ask and then see what they say. Then you can, rebuttal from there.
I suppose in this time when, everyone's got an iPhone, everyone's a content creator, everyone's a photographer. One question that has come up a lot, also on sets that I've worked on, is, do you really think there's a difference? And if so, how? The difference between shooting an influencer and an actual model?
Oh yeah, it's definitely different. I mean, with models, you could kind of like, it's different. Like models, they're meant to like, change different outfits like in an immense amount of times, and you can kind of like push them. And then like with influencers, it's a little different because they're used to like, shooting themselves or shooting their iPhone. So I feel like, like it's just, but we're in such a world today where influencers are such a big impact. Like I do a lot of campaigns as well with influencers, but it's just, it's different because you could kind of have, when they're big influencers, you kind of have to think of them like almost like a celebrity, you can't like push them too hard. You can't like, you got to like wait a little bit around for them and like, be ready when they're ready. And so with models, it's a little different because it's kind of like, you could kind of be like, hey, we got it. Like, we have like 10 more minutes, like, let's go, but it's just like, it's different worlds. Cause there's also big models where it's like, you really can't be like that either. But yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree there.
But it's, I mean, for me, it's like, we do enter a time where you have to be ready to learn how to shoot, and like especially for fashion and beauty, like you have to be ready to learn how to communicate with both type of people. Like you have to learn how to like navigate an influencer to be the best of how they can present themselves, and then you have to do the same with a model. You have to like motivate them. Like people also think that models sometimes like they just have to look pretty, but it's like, I mean, if you think about it, like how hard it is to model. Like you have to be pretty. You have to be like, ready to be in front of the camera and be your best self and, always move no matter how many, if you're having a bad day, it doesn't matter, so it's like, it's up to me sometimes to be like, you're doing great. Like you look amazing. Like, you have to have like that spirit when it comes to like, even like being in fashion, because it is a long day sometimes. Like sometimes we're shooting like 10 to 12 hours. Like I just did like a huge campaign and we shot for 12 hours, and the influencer, she was incredible. Like she was just like, like I was speaking to her, like motivating her even after a long day, but she was doing great because it's like, we had that chemistry, to like do the best we can on this campaign.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I know that, sometimes, influencers kind of, they're used to shooting their own stuff. So it's like, oh no, this is my right angle. No, this is the right. And I know with models, it's more like they are the canvas. They just, you do whatever you want kind of thing.
That's a great way to put it. Yes.
Yeah. And just to then go into, because I've looked at both of your work and stuff, and I know I see a very consistent imagery, a consistent technique. So I really want to know, how did you guys stay true to, the way you do what you do, your style? Because I know that over time it does evolve, but you still have that baseline of how your work looks, and you want to obviously stand out but still be true to the basis of what a good photograph looks like. So Jennifer, how did you stay true to your brand, your look, but still evolving with the times?
I think this is a really good question. I do a lot of branding or personal branding photography as well. And what I always say to all of my personal branding clients is that you need to plan what you put out there. What you put out, you will attract. So I always ask all of my clients to think of 3 words to describe your business. So that could be any 3 words, but 3 words that make you feel something about your business. And if your business isn't exactly where you want it to be, it's you think about where you'd like your business to be in a year's time, and write down those 3 words. And if the images that you don't put out there don't convey those 3 words, then they're not the right images to show. Now, for instance, for my photography, and I use my own photography as an example whenever I'm going through a plan with personal branding photography clients, that I always write down that the images must be emotional. And that's something I know we've discussed before. And if my images that I show they don't convey that feeling of emotion, then they're not going on my Instagram or my social media. It's really important to me. What other words could I use to describe? Creative is another one. I really like my images to feel creative. That could be through creative lighting or an atmosphere or a mood, but just something that feels a little bit special. I think that's important to me to convey in my photography. And another one would be warm, in terms of more mood as opposed to kind of temperature, because you never get that in England. It's rubbish weather here. But I think I like to convey warmth as well, and I think that's what gets me more bookings, whether it's family or weddings or personal branding, because I think that they can see that it's consistently showing those 3 elements of my photography. And because I put them out there all the time, that's what I get back.
And sorry, and you, Emilynn?
So for me, I always ask myself the question to keep my work consistent, like, is this Emilynn Rose? Because for me, like, when I first started photography, I was entered to so many different types. Like, I could have been, like a wedding photographer, family photographer, e-com photographer. Then when you get into fashion, you start becoming more and more narrow. You could just become like a photographer that could do it all, or people can hire you to be you. And that was always my dream. Like, I looked up to like so many big photographers that are like, they get hired to be them. And that's for me, like, the biggest thing is like, I just want to do me. Like, at the end of the day, like, I just want to be Emilynn Rose. Like, so for me, it's like, yes, definitely emotion. Like, is it captivating enough? For me, like, does the woman look powerful? Does the female look like, just like empowering and bold and strong? Like, those for me, like, I love capturing women in that sense. And then colors for me, like, I love color. Like, I love like my pop, like, it's not really like a pop of color, but it's just so crisp. Like, there's something about my work that I always try to make it like crisp, but not too like, like filtered, and it's still natural, like for me, like, I don't like to retouch so much, like, if I can pull back on retouching as much as I can, like, I will, but like, to still keep them looking really beautiful and, like I said, empowering.
And I mean, it's amazing that you guys are speaking about these projects. I think let's dive into some campaigns that you've done in the past. And Jennifer, the people and the stories that you've told. If you guys want to give me like one example of some a campaign or a project that you've worked on that either you really enjoyed or it really like took a lot out of you, maybe artistically, for example. Jennifer, if you want to.
Sure. Okay. If we're talking about wedding photography, I think every wedding is so emotional. Every client, I invest so much emotion in every job I do. I spend so long kind of like I think that's the best thing that you can probably give your clients actually is your time, and to invest that time with them to really kind of get to know them and really get under their skin, so that when you work with them, that comes through. But I would say, if we're talking of wedding photography, I shot a wedding a couple of years. It was probably about 2 years ago now, for a gorgeous family who I'd photographed their family a couple of times, and I hope she won't mind me saying, but she tried for years for IVF to have a second child. They were successful. It was wonderful. And then she fell pregnant unexpectedly then very shortly after. So on her wedding day, it was a newborn shoot, a wedding. She'd had the baby 3 days before, and a christening all rolled into one.
Wow.
And it was, it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was hard work. I was in hard work because they were lovely clients, but it was emotionally, it took so much out of me because I felt like obviously I knew them, and she just had this baby, which was wonderful news. It was such a surprise. The wedding was emotional. The other children were there. It was just, I just basically sobbed through the whole thing. It was ridiculous.
I would be queuing for the whole shoot.
Oh, honestly. But no, I think that's it. I think you put a lot of emotion into it. It can be more emotionally draining than physically draining a shoot. And like if you're shooting a campaign all day, like Emilynn said, there's so much energy, there's such a buzz. It's just honestly, it really is the best job in the world. And you come away and you're completely wired. And you like have like a hangover like the next day just from feeling so exhausted. And there is actually a phrase in the wedding industry that they call it the wedding hangover, the day after a wedding, because you're just absolutely exhausted. You feel like you've been on a big night out, and unfortunately you haven't, but you have the after effects.
Absolutely understandable. And Emilynn, I know that you've worked with, a variety of influencers and models and stuff. I saw your latest campaign with Jackie Aina as well. So do you want to talk us through maybe some of the cool campaigns that you've done, or one that's actually stood out to you?
Yeah. I will say that is exactly why, though, I can't be a wedding photographer. Is because I am so emotional that I will probably cry through the whole wedding and just like
blurry pictures.
So yeah, I mean, like definitely that Cosmopolitan shoot that I just did with Jackie Aina. I've worked for Cosmo before, but this is my first Cosmo USA. And oh my goodness, it's just so empowering because I love Jackie. Jackie's one of my clients. And just like, who she is and what she speaks for is something I truly believe in as well. I think she's amazing. So it was such a great way for me to like do Cosmo and also feel that like empowering sense of like, wow, like the first time I get to do Cosmo is with this, amazing client/friend of mine that I get to just, be myself with. And it was just such a flow throughout the whole day. It was just fluid, which is like, sometimes like, those are the most amazing shoots where it's just like, everything just kind of goes. But I don't know. I have so many projects that just happen. Honestly, what takes a lot out of me, but in like the best possible way, is like my cover shoots. Like, the Harper's Bazaar, that cover shoot probably took a month of planning. And I actually do have an L cover coming out next Monday. And
congratulations.
Yeah, so I'm so excited. So stay tuned, it comes out next Monday. And that took a lot out of me. Like, it was just like, probably two straight weeks of planning and like location scouting and talking back and forth with like a lot of different people, working with my producer to make it happen and to make it like the most fluid it can be. Because like, I really just wanted to like that day for the shoot, I wanted to wake up and just be an artist. Like, I didn't want to like carry my gear in. So I loaded in everything the day before with my lighting tech. We prepped everything. We like scheduled all the locations. We got through like 8 looks, which is like incredible because of like the preparation I did for this shoot. And it's honestly so amazing. I'm so excited for it to be released next week. But yeah, I mean, I did photo and video that day. So I was directing the fashion film for it. And like, it was just like Jennifer said, you're on a high, you're riding this high all day, and you have to be like, not saying like I am the leader of the shoot, but like I have to be the person that's like, let's go guys. Like, don't, like, especially after lunch, everyone gets like a little like, oh, okay, like, let's go, but it's like, it was such a great shoot. Like that was like really, I rode that high for like, even till today, honestly. I'm actually with the model right now that we shot. So it's really, yeah. So we're really, really excited for it to get released.
And in such a vast industry, I suppose, when coming up in trying to build, how important do you guys feel it is to build a team and come up with a team, i.e. stylists, makeup artists that kind of have the same vision as you? And we've seen it happen in the industry so many times, and even certain models that come up with you as well. So how do you guys feel about trying to build a team, or what would you say is the best advice when going forward and trying to look for like-minded creatives?
It's so important. Honestly, team building, I always say, like, you'll see on a lot of my posts, like, I will be nothing without my team, because especially for what I do, it takes a village. You know, it really takes like people to understand your vision, to collaboratively work together in like a flow. It's almost like playing music, you know, it's like you all have to be in sync. And so trial and error, like you have to try people out, and you have to work with the ones, you know, like that you're confident with and that, you know, can, you know, do the job, but you do have to like work with other people as well. And I do believe in collaboration. I believe in like always working with different people. But also it's a photographer's job to also create a direction. You know, it is something that's very important. You can't just go and be like, oh, let's just see what happens. You know, I mean, you can, but like, that's not really how I work. Like, I kind of like to like not plan too much, because I am a team player. Like, I'm all about like, hey, what do you think of this? Like, what are your ideas? Like, I'm not a makeup artist. I'm not a stylist. I'm not like a hairdresser. So it's like, you also kind of like, the team you work with has to bring something to the table, because I can tell you what my ideas are, but it's up to your team to take it to that next level. You know, it's like, how do you take it just a little bit like of a notch up than what my vision is, you know?
And
but
Jennifer,
also still be collaborative.
Right. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that you've got to, like you said, you're only as good as your team, aren't you? I think that it is really incredible to build a network and build a really good team that has a really similar vision to you. And I think that sometimes it is really good to take a risk. You know, it's good to have fresh people on your team. They may come up with something spectacular that you didn't even know was possible. Like, I'm constantly amazed by the skills of makeup artists and hairstylists. Oh, it's amazing. I mean, gosh, if I could hire one to come and do my makeup every day, I would. If I ever win the lottery, that's what I'm doing first. And I've got like a whole load of network of amazing people that could do that. And I think it's lovely. I mean, especially if you kind of work as an independent company, you know, if you work for yourself, having a network of creatives around you becomes an alternative to maybe working in a larger business or in an office where you kind of miss having that network of people around you. I think that one of the best things that I've gained over the years has been a network of really amazing creative people that I would call my team, even if they're not sat in my home office or on every shoot with me, because it's like having that little catalogue of people that you know that you can go to and just pull up and be really excited to, you know, to share with other people who might necessarily need a makeup artist or a stylist on set. And it's lovely to be able to recommend them and feel that excitement. You know, I think that's really important.
And for I want to actually pose this to both of you. For photographers that are, you know, coming up, what are the main like key points you think that you would give them for standing out, kind of like standing out in the crowd? Because I mean, everyone can, you know, pick up a camera and do whatever, but what advice would you give them for standing out?
Okay, I'll go first. I think just standing out is to stay true to yourself. You know, like when I said earlier, like when I pick and choose like my work, like it's really like, does this define Emilynn Rose? Like when you're creating and when you're an artist, you just have to really create the art that you are in love with and to create the art that you are happy with. And then people will recognize that. And, you know, like I said, it does take time. It takes a lot of trial and error, but push yourself. Like photography is not really one of those things. Like I always tell my apprentices, you're either a hobbyist or you're a professional, right? So you got to do this Monday through Saturday. And so just work hard, because your art is not going to just come out of the blue. You're going to find yourself through the journey. You're going to find yourself through a project that you didn't think was going to be great, but ended up being great, you know? And then you just started to finally like recognize like what defines you. Like my art defines who I am. And so I think in the long run, like if you push through this career, you're gonna find you know, who you are and what you truly love to do.
And over time, how do you feel about, you know, I mean, you could be a photographer, your work is great, but you're just not being seen. So I suppose the question is really, how do you feel about people getting representation? So agents, or do you feel like the best way to go forward is just, like I said, being an apprentice or shadowing? What would you suggest as the best kind of narrative to go forward? Because there are many people that could be great, but it's just my work isn't seen. I have many photographer friends that are just like, well, I just wish
be
the
seen.
right person to see my friend.
Be
See
seen.
my work.
I think that there's some people who just wait for opportunities. And I'm sorry, the opportunities are there. Instagram is there. Your website is there. Like, it is up to you as a photographer to be seen. Like, be loud and be heard. But, yes, you could find an agent if you're great enough. Being a photographer is really hard. Like, I just got with my management last year, and for a long time I was freelancing, but I was pushing, I was emailing, I was cold emailing. I was like getting 10 no's and 1 yes, and like, it takes hard work. Like, it's not a job where anything's guaranteed. It's not like you look at the next month and you're like, oh yeah, I have this, this, and this like coming up. Like, sometimes job comes up last minute, and so I think that there's some people who just make excuses, and I that's one thing I tell all my apprentices. I'm sorry, the opportunity's there. I came from nothing, guys, and the opportunity is there for you. There's social media. There is a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of ways to network today that you could not network back then. So there is no excuse. And there's more jobs now. Like, female photographers are rising. Like, photographer jobs are becoming so much. Like, content is everything. Like, there's just no excuse.
Jennifer, how do you feel about that?
I agree completely. I think that we're such a visually led society, and I think that when I started out in photography, it was such a male dominated industry, and now it's definitely changed. I would say it's completely flipped. I would say it's definitely female led now, which is wonderful. It's really good. And I think, use the tools that you have, use all the social media platforms you can, just get out there, show up for your clients, show you that you're there. If you don't have any work on, like during lockdown, we've been really stuck, just because you're not necessarily out there shooting doesn't mean you can't adapt. And you can't offer advice as well. And that's really nice because, it just shows that you're still the go-to person in your industry to give you that information, and that you're still that person that will come to the top of people's mind when they think of, who do I want to do this photography. And I think you are completely right. There are enough jobs out there. You just need to stop worrying about what everyone else is doing and set your own targets. You are your only competition. Stop comparing yourself to everybody else, because that is the worst thing. And I know I'm as guilty of that as everybody else. Just set your own goals, set against your targets, and just get out there and do it, even if it's a little bit every day. If you've got, if you're trying to build a business and you've got a young family and you don't feel like you've got any time on your hands, and if it's just one small step every single day, it will build. You just need to show up. You need to do it.
I think as photographers, for brands that, brands, or be it small businesses that are growing, we know that photographs is like one of the most powerful ways to, push your brand forward, because that's the first thing that we see. So if we could just give some quick tips in terms of taking professional pictures, i.e. for your brand, or for either for clothing, or if you're an influencer with a limited amount of equipment. If we could just get you guys to do maybe 3 tips that you can give for people with a limited amount of equipment.
3 tips. Find the good lighting. Always shoot towards the lighting. Second, scout locations. There's so many amazing locations around your neighborhood. You don't need a studio. You don't need like a big house to shoot at. Like, there's so many great locations anywhere around the world. And then 3, find inspirations. It's always great to reference work with inspirations, because it's like, some people just like, oh, okay, like, let's just shoot, but then they don't have a direction. It's always great to have a direction, especially for your brand or an influencer, like who is your brand? Who is your market? What is your identity? Yeah. those are my tips.
And you, Jennifer?
Yeah, brilliant tips. I think along similar lines, yes. I mean, always have your ideal client in mind. Always think about how, what you're shooting is going to represent you. You want to tie in all of your company or your brand's values into that shoot. So always have them in mind. So when you're going into your shoot, just always think, right, what am I shooting and how is this going to attract my ideal client? Because you do need to go in there thinking of these things. In terms of planning, yes, I mean, definitely mood boards are brilliant. Go in there, like Emilynn said, with a strategy. Have a think what you've got coming up in the next 6 months. Have you got, a book launch? Are you designing a new website? Are you going to be running a new course? Have these things in mind if you're going in with a shoot, because you don't need huge amounts of equipment to do, but you should have a plan, definitely. And I think don't be afraid to show your quirks. I think that's really important. Show you, true you. There's only one you, and that's your USP. That's what nobody else has got. And I think, I loved what Emilynn said about, people hiring her for her. And I think that's fabulous. You want to be hired for you, not for necessarily what you do, but they want you. They want your creativity, your art, your product, your brand, and you are your brand. So you want to celebrate that. And if you've got different sides and facets to your business, then shoot those too.
And I just want us to touch on, mentorship, because you referenced, Emily, a lot about your apprentices. And Jennifer, you spoke about when you used to shadow onto other photographers. Just before we go on to the questions from the audience, I just wanted to know, how do you guys feel about, mentorship and paving it down, to photographers that are coming up, and how are you actively trying to support going forward? Sorry, Emily.
Oh, sorry. Say that one more time.
Right. So you spoke about, your apprentices in, I wanted to ask about, mentorship and, paving the way for more photographers, coming up, be it, giving their mentorship classes, having apprentices on, maybe bringing them as help on like other shoots and things like that.
Yeah. So I actually truly believe that mentorship is important.
Yeah.
Honestly, I came from not the best area in LA, but I grew up like not around a lot of artists, and I found my mentor randomly shooting in Venice Beach. And I approached him, and I always tell, it's kind of emotional for me, because like I always tell everyone that my mentor is someone who really believed in me, and I didn't have a male figure in my life. So, and he is 10 years older than me, and he just believed in me. It was one of those things, like it was like I've never had. And he's a guy, which, is incredible, but he believed in me like no one ever did. And, 10 years later till today, we still work together. We were actually on a project last week together. And still today, he believes in me. And I can call him anytime and be like, hey, what kind of lighting do you think I need for this? Or what do you think I need to get for this, this, and this? Like, there's always a person that I can go to and, talk photography. And that's something I always tell my apprentices. I've had 2 apprentices who did really well. One's actually my business partner in the studio. One of them is doing amazing work now and is a full-time photographer. And I have a couple underneath me today, but it's always about believing in them and knowing that, they can come to me if they have questions. And, this is not an industry, as a photographer, you're alone a lot of the times. Yes, you're on set and you're with a lot of people, but, you're editing by yourself, you're emailing by yourself. You're kind of like, you're not with the same people every day. So it's always nice to have that sense of team and that sense of like go-to when it comes to like just having somebody there for you.
And Jennifer, I just want to pose the same question to you, really, how you feel about mentorship and, paving that way down.
Oh, it's so important. It's really hard to approach someone and ask them for advice. It's it takes a lot of bravery, and oh gosh,
Yeah.
I find it hugely complimentary if anybody ever contacts me and asks me for advice. I love it. I mean, I believe really strongly in community over competition. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but I really, really do. And I think that, you know, I've been given chances in life that I never expected. And when you get that first kind of, I mean, it's not necessarily apprenticeship that I went through, but that first opportunity to assist someone on set, it feels like, wow, your dreams are about to come true. And if you can give that back to someone as well, it's hugely rewarding. I think mentorship is incredibly important, and it's a really good step into working out exactly what direction you want your business to go in. And then there's so much advice out there from so many amazing people, and just, you know, to take that step and approach someone, just do it. It's worth it. What's the worst that could happen? They could say no, but they might say yes, and in which case you will be on your journey to doing what you really want to do in life.
Absolutely. I totally agree. We're going to move on to the audience questions. I've seen a couple popping up already. I'll just wait for them to come on the screen.
Yeah. Well, so while we're waiting, I will say too. Oh, okay, never mind.
Right. So Zainab says, what are the problems you noticed in the photography industry that hasn't been solved yet? Jennifer, sorry if you want to.
Sure. Sorry, was I nodding then thinking, yes. Oh. Right. Personally, I found, because it is a job that so many people want to do, from my own experience, I found that I don't think junior photographers are valued as much as they should be. I think that you go in, I was paid such a low wage in London, and I barely got by. And I think that was another reason that kind of pushed me, which is a very good thing to do my business on the side as well, because I literally couldn't afford to live on the wage I was being paid in London. But I loved it so much. And it's because you love it so much that you're willing to work for such a low wage. So I think that is something that I honestly feel, because it is such an industry that is so competitive, and you're constantly told that there's 10 people out there that would want your job, that I don't think necessarily they were paying them fairly enough. If you know what I mean. They didn't when I started anyway.
And you, Emilynn?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's a lot of almost you get taken advantage of in the beginning. But also for me, definitely, just in the fashion industry, still diversity. Diversity is still a big thing that I feel like I still keep pushing on a lot of clients, and I'm so big in that, and I love to work with brands and companies that really influence diversity, especially being a person of color. And then also not saying that I'm a little girl, I'm 5 feet tall. And so when I walk into set with my team, sometimes I don't get approached as the photographer. Sometimes they'll go straight to my lighting tech and be like, hey, so you're the photographer today? And I'm like, I'm over here. So just kind of the awareness maybe that, that women can actually start doing this job and be great at it is, something that I've seen is still kind of it still bites me a little bit, and then when that happens in the shoot, I'm always like, dang it, I feel like I've worked hard enough to put my name on that call sheet that says Emilynn Rose, and still something that there are people out there who still can't see that a female's about to do this campaign.
I get that at weddings when there's a videographer, and if the videographer's male, they assume I'm part of his team. Oh,
yeah,
me.
As an assistant, and you're like, what? I'm on the call sheet. Yeah.
And it's amazing.
But that's still barriers we are trying to push. And honestly, look, I work with, it's not that I work with other female photographers, but there's a group of female photographers here in LA that we just empower each other, and it's all about time. And from where I started to where I am today, it's incredible to see the change in the industry.
Amazing. So Tanya says, what are the essentials you'd recommend getting when you start as a photographer? So some essential equipment.
A DSLR, It doesn't even matter. Like, just get used to learning your ISO, your f-stop, and your shutter. And then a reflector. Honestly, reflectors are huge, and they're so cheap, guys. They're really cheap, $30. And then maybe even a flash head, you know? But those are the three things, like, I think, like, will get you started. And then you can learn from there, and then you can grow your equipment from there. I started with a Canon. I don't know if you guys will know what this is, but I started with a Canon Rebel T2i. I just used to black out. It's a really old camera. I used to just black out like the front of it where it says the logo. And I used to come on set with my T2i and then just pretended like it was like a great camera, you know, but it's just, you gotta work with what you got, right?
Absolutely. Sorry, I was once told, like, try and make your camera look as big as you can. So put a flash on it, put a big lens on it, but, you know, the reflector bit at the back, like, just make it as big as you can to make it look as posh as you can. No, I agree.
Actually, a lens too. A good lens.
A good lens. Yeah.
One good lens. It's okay. Like, get a DSLR, a good lens, and then a reflector and a flash.
I agree. I think the lens makes a massive difference. Once you start investing in a really good lens, even if, like you said, even if it's just one, it makes such a difference. It's then that you realize that actually this is how you get from the stage of being, you know, semi-professional to professional. Obviously, a laptop's really important, and a hard drive, a good sturdy hard drive, like a lacy, rugged one, like a really good sturdy one. So if you can take it everywhere, and if you drop it, then
don't drop it.
Don't drop it. Don't drop it.
Right. So Zainab says, are you part of any media or photography communities? If so, which ones? And what platforms are the best to get clients? Let's do that part first. There's a second part, which will be very important. So let's do that part first. So are there any media photography communities that you are part of, or any platforms that you would suggest to be part of, any communities?
I'm not really part of any, but LA is it starts becoming a small world in LA when you're in the fashion photography business. But I honestly use Instagram. Instagram is a great tool. I love Instagram. I don't care what people say. You know, like, I connect with other photographers on Instagram. I connect with models. I connect with creative directors. You know, you can connect with so many people. And then, and then now there's Clubhouse. You know, there's a bunch of groups on Clubhouse that talks about, like, photography and all that. So that's great.
Yeah, I agree. I think that what am I part of? I'm part of so many different communities. I'm just trying to think. There's one called Shoots Like a Girl, which is great for female photographers, and it's lovely. It's a really good community, really nice, safe space to kind of talk about if anything's kind of stressing you out, any advice. Oh my gosh, there's so many. I can't even think of them now. The London Wedding Breakfast Club, that's a good one. I mean, it's quite specific to London, sorry, so it might not be suitable for everyone. I think just kind of seek them out. I mean, again, like I said before, if you work on your own, it's nice to have these communities to be able to share inspiration and advice. I'm, you know, part of lots of different communities that I feel inspired by that aren't necessarily photography related, because I get inspiration from so many different areas as well. In terms of platforms, just use them all. I love Instagram too, and I love Pinterest. I'm obsessed with Pinterest. I use Pinterest all the time for planning with my clients, but it's also really good for getting clients as well. I do need to do better on that, I must admit, but I do love them.
Amazing. And the second part of that question, it will be our last question for today. It says, any recommended courses or workshops, masterclasses to advance your photography skill? Or would you just say maybe, I know some people say just YouTube everything and then it'll be fine.
There's a lot of great stuff out there on YouTube, actually. Oh, sorry, Emilynn, did you?
No, yeah.
Oh, thank you. There is actually a really lot of good stuff on there. I think it's quite useful to, you know, if there's ever a particular type of lighting, and, you know, it's an amazing source of information, YouTube. I love I love, like, in terms of not necessarily photography skills, but like building your confidence as going into business. Things like TED Talks are amazing for just making you feel like, yeah, I can do this. And, sometimes you just need that boost from somebody who you feel really knows what they're talking about to make you realize that everybody starts somewhere. And I think that if you can build your confidence, I mean, Emilynn's, she's a perfect example of this. She has got this amazing energy and this amazing confidence, and has just gone out there and just done it and is thriving. And that's exactly what you want to do. And if you can get inspiration to build that confidence, then that is everything. The skills can be taught. It's your personality and your energy that you need to build, and that that comes naturally. And I think that's really incredible.
I completely agree. I actually wake up a lot of the days and listen to like motivational speeches, because it really just helps me like get motivated for the day and feel confident with myself. But as far as it comes for workshops and classes, like if you do see an opportunity to do like a workshop that's not gonna like eat your pocket, I think it always helps, especially if it's like from a recognizable name, or at least somebody who like you can tell is doing well. But YouTube, guys, I learned everything from YouTube. Google. Honestly, when I first started, I literally Googled how to become a fashion photographer. Yes, guys, you can literally Google that, and it will show you. It'll tell you, reach out to agencies, this and that, build your portfolio, and test models, and it really helped guide me. And then yeah, but I will be doing a business class soon, just so you guys know. It will be super affordable, so that, if you guys do have, like questions on how to actually run a business as a photographer, I'm putting together a class for it, and hopefully it comes out in May. So,
yeah. Plugging us, plugging. Thank you, ladies, so much for having a chat with me today. Hopefully, we were able to give some very necessary information to upcoming photographers, and that boost, like this is a message. Go out there and do it.
Yes.
And your social medias will be down in the comment section as well. Follow these ladies and connect with them. I know I will. And I've learned a lot, even in working in the industry. It's just amazing to see and to hear about, when you're there at the top, what it really takes. So thank you again, ladies. It was amazing to have you on our platform today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. It was so lovely.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.